Board games, board games. We might be talking about how we work in board games, but we don't want to shout. We don't want to be all consumed because that might spell certain doom, and it might spell certain burnout, which might then make us cry and shout, which, as we've already said, is not something we want to do. So, how can we avoid this? Let's discuss this with you. Board games and avoiding burnout and being all consumed when your job is your passion is what we're talking about. Board games and avoiding being all consumed when your job is your passion and you might not have that many hobbies. I'm not going to shout. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. It is 10 a.m. UK time. Time for Busy Beats and Board Game Bled. Around with me today are, from left to right, it is Laurie with the blue hair. Hello, Laurie.
Hi.
And Ree with the ginger hair, longer hair.
Hello.
And today is episode 689, How to Avoid Being All Consumed When Work is Your Passion. And I'd forgotten that we said we were going to talk about this, but apparently we did. So thank you for reminding me, Ree. And yes, as I've said in the title, it is an honour and a privilege that I just did my taxes. And the truth is I have made money from Yogi, but everything else I've actually lost money, which is not great. I mean, to be like, yeah, I would have, but at the same time, I was saying to my sibling, who's helping me with the taxes, hopefully, because big companies are looking at, quite a few of the games, actually 6 of them are currently being considered, 5 of them are being considered by a very big company, 1 of them's being considered by a very small company. So it's all good, and hopefully that will be more avenues to make more money, because the truth is, unlike you two, even though I've done a lot more self-publication, I'm not a very good self-publisher, and that feels like the truth. Maybe I'm being a bit, down on myself, but, if the target goal is to actually make money, I'm not doing a great job of it. That's the truth. But, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you are being a bit down on yourself. I mean, also you run a stream like pretty much every day, so given that you're splitting your attention between those two things, I think you're.
But that's, I mean, that I'm not going to disagree that I'm like generally a brilliant person. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not as miserable today as I might have been like last week, and I am like, for sure, I'm an amazing person in many ways, don't get me wrong, but in terms of being a self-publisher, that's what I'm saying. That's one thing, because what is as a business person, that's what I'm basically saying, as that part of it, not very good.
Well,
okay. Well, I mean,
I think we all agree, because we're all creatives here, right? We need other people to help with the business part ourselves. So
yeah, I think
we hear you.
That's it. Like, if we, in a way, I think that the idea that we're not so good at the business part of it is kind of understandable, because it's our creativity that drives us to this sector and like art to board games as a whole. And if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have any of it. So, if I was to pick between being good at the business part or being good at the creativity part, I'd hands down pick the creativity part every day. You seem to have that in the bag, so no trouble.
Thank you very much. I mean, there are some people for sure, like Peter Blancarn of ITB and Cesar Aljassar of Alicat Games, who I would say are maybe the other way around, where sure, they started off designing their own game, and I'm not going to say they were terrible, but they might not have been like the best things, but like, there was at least some sort of hook, and they were successful enough, and then they've decided, okay, I'm going to move away from the creativity part, and I'm just going to focus on getting stuff done, on managing it, on working out the systems, on working out the business. And well done to, I mean, Alicat and Inside the Box both seem to be doing reasonably well. And yeah, do you think that it's inevitable that in order to have some semblance of humanity to be able to do stuff. You ultimately need to pick one or the other, because there's probably less than 10 people in the entire world who actually do both well.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I think that sort of comes back round to humans as a whole thriving community, right? We all specialize in our own certain things, and if you've got someone who's really good at the business part, someone who's really good at the creative part, combining them is powerful indeed.
Mm-mm.
Which
And-
is why in SDR, of course, we decided to go completely the other way and get through creatives in a business and somehow make it work. That makes sense.
I tried.
Are you, I mean, I don't mean to bring you down, but are you at this point kind of, feeling a bit sad and unhappy about your choice of team?
No, because you know what, we love each other as a team. We're a fantastic team. It's a pleasure to work with each other, and ultimately, whatever difficulties we face, the fact that we not only get on so well but also complement each other in terms of product creation, kind of overcomes any difficulties we would have in the business side. So, as far as I'm concerned, I think the team is a dream team for me.
Just shows us that there's room for one or two more people.
Yeah, exactly. You know.
Mm-mm.
If we can make it, if we can struggle through and make it work and do the business side of things, then eventually we can get down the line, as you seem to be on the cusp of doing, actually, you know, make some profits and then get to the other side and have someone in to help us.
Yeah, on the back end, I am going to publicly admit that I don't think that I will ever make profits on my self-publishing, is the truth. And I think that it's not because I don't want to make profits, but there are some, other factors. And I think that for me, it is very much a case of, as I said, partnering with other companies. Because I think I've released, I've forgotten, let's say I've released 5 games within the past year. I mean, it might be more, but let's say it's 5. And then one other one was Drawn Together. And I mean, I think it's 5. No, it's 6 games, because one of them came out at UK Games Expo, a game about stuffing balloons as a team. That's why I was confused for a moment. Yes, I've actually done 6 games, but one of them I've not shown to anyone because it just came out at UK Games Expo. And I had a pitch meeting with a big company before then. I showed them those 5. I'm like, that's really good. Like, the relationship with ITB is good in that, like, they'll work on the stuff and we're getting the back and forth, but ultimately it's down to them to actually sell the things. And I've been speaking to, Cosmo Duck, which might or might not happen for a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after some explosions. And it's like it's just a struggle to do things yourself and then trying to work out, okay, how much do I spend here? How much time do I take? And I guess this goes down into efficiency, which we will be talking about in 11 days for my 700th episode sneak preview. But then efficiency is also part of avoiding being all consumed, saying, you know what, this is a thing I'm not going to do. That's a thing I'm going to make time for it. I need to prioritize time for my friends, for my family, for my other hobbies, for my body, for my health, all of these things. And would you agree that these two are completely intertwined? And before we leave this so-called preview of the topic, is there anything else that you would like to say?
I don't think so. It sounds like that's what we're going to cover. So let's get covering it.
Okay, before we do that, let's talk about recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights. I've been mainly eating potatoes, so I've been having a high potato diet. I wanted to have a just potato diet, like just potatoes and vitamins. It's kind of a way to reset the taste buds and just start appreciating food and not just eat food because it's exciting, if you know what I mean, and gorge on chocolates and stuff. So I found myself, that's a bit too much for me. So I've been allowing myself like a little bit of additional stuff. Yesterday was my cheat day where I had the hard rule is no dairy. So I had some cereal, just like dry cereal, which was actually quite nice. It's high protein cereal, and then I had some haggis, which I adore. Sorry, I know it's not vegan, but interestingly, I have had a lot of vegan stuff because when I've been trying to focus on like calories and stuff just for the next month, and it's like, wow, you don't guess how many calories are actually in meat and also in fruit juice. Whereas, like, a big bottle of tomato juice, like the entire 1 liter, it's only 270 calories. Whereas the same thing of grape juice, it's like 800 calories.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's 750, but like, I'm not going to exaggerate, but like, right up. Like, it's like, I enjoyed both, and yeah, sure, I enjoyed the sweetness of grapes, but do I enjoy it that much more? I'm not sure I do. Does it do me that much goodness? I'm not sure it does. So I've still got a bottle of grape juice, but I've been kind of nursing it over a couple of weeks.
Nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's basically my recent highlights. Yesterday was my day off. I just laid around and didn't do much of anything. I watched a couple of shows. I wandered around. That was pretty much me, just lazing around, taking a day off. How about you? What have you been up to?
Yeah, I mean, we lazed around yesterday as well. Sundays are our roleplay days, so we played far too many hours of roleplay. That was excellent. But I think otherwise, recent highlights has been, this is a weird one, but everything has been so stressful lately. We've actually been playing more board games. Because it's like the best way to just turn everything off. It doesn't cost us money for electricity. Excellent. And so we finally got Everdell to the table. That was good.
Yeah, that was really good. Yeah, and enjoyed it actually more than I expected to. In truth, I'm not normally a fan of worker placement games, but actually I thought Everdell balanced it quite well with the whole engine building aspect, and I really quite liked that.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
And yeah, if you've got games that you've bought and still aren't playing, what's going on with that? I mean, I understand most of us are guilty of this. I'm not trying to say that I don't have any unplayed games. I've got way too many unplayed games. And so the truth becomes, hey, we should play all these games, and it's untapped potential. I love that phrase, piles of potential.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, our excuse is we didn't actually buy Everdell for ourselves. It was a gift.
Yeah.
For some reason, that meant it sat on the shelf for far too long.
That's it, because we paid for other games. As a result, they almost have more importance to play first, because now we have to, because that was a gift. It was almost like, even though it was one that we arguably probably wanted to try more, it somehow felt less pressing. So odd psychological one, but yeah, there it is.
No, I totally get that. I mean, yeah, like I was going to say, for sure, sometimes when I swap for games, do I do the same thing? For me, if something's got super simple rules, super light rules, I might be more likely to play it. I'm not going to lie. If it's something that I think other people can get excited about. But yeah, for sure, if there's something that I've actually bought full price, I will be more likely to, play it sooner. But let's talk about brilliant things. Brilliant things. What's a little thing which is brilliant? I see that. I assume it's fairly warm where you are, fairly mild. I mean, here it's at the point where I am sitting here, and there is a little bit of sweat. I'm not going to lie. And yeah, I think I'd like to talk about hydration, like not just water, but general drinking. I think that I love drinking. It's one of the best things, like the liquid passing through your lips, like maybe not over your lips, because maybe it's just kind of just beyond your lips when you put the rim of the glass or the bottle on. So it kind of goes down your mouth and down your throat. Do you feel, ooh, it's like a bit of satisfaction, especially if you've got something cold. But I see that you've got something hot. So it's hot.
Yeah, Reed has tea. I have coffee.
It is boiling here today.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that we've gotten into such a rhythm of having a hot drink over breakfast that we can't break it even in this heat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe that's another brilliant thing about drinking, and that it is like a touchstone. It's part of your day. It's part of your routine. Like generally, I like to. I've not done it today, but I like to start off my day by filling up the water bottle and then popping in a couple of pills in, and then it goes, and then the effervescent bubbles start coming off. And I'm not going to lie, it gives me a wee bit of joy. It's sometimes it's the most fun that I have for that minute. And like I try to focus on it and like just it gives me a moment to like just meditate and focus on that and to like, this is nice to have. Whereas this morning, like I'm trying to build a new routine where I take the water out of the fridge so it's already cold but I think that's a brilliant thing, just drinking and eating when it's part of our routine. But of course, getting into the whole calories thing, if your routine is to sit and mindlessly munch on, junk food, then, that's not great for you. Whereas, frankly, if your routine is to mindlessly sip on tea or water with some effervescent pills in it, well, I don't think there's any downside to that in terms of health, really. I mean, if you go extreme, for sure, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, I think that with like food and how it can be, like it can become a compulsion. It's very much a case of, when you bring yourself back into order, almost as you are doing, it's about being in control of it yourself as opposed to it being in control of you.
But at the same time, I know you can go too far the other way, where you're like, okay, I'm only going to eat between these 2 hours because I need to keep control of it. And I'm sorry to bring up the serious topic of anorexia and like kind of this sense of having to keep the overarching control. Like there is a limit. Like we do have, I mean, I don't know. None of us are professionals in terms of like dealing with these sorts of things, but I know that I don't have the healthiest relationship with food, and I want to kind of just be more mindful is a first step for me.
Absolutely. No, I'm quite similar. Food can be quite difficult sometimes, but I think it is all about being mindful and doing what is best for you and your body at any point in time, and that does change as well.
Interestingly, I'm actually the complete opposite way, where I'm more likely to skip meals, not because I am like worried about my weight or anything, but actually just because I find it a bit of a chore to have to go and create and then consume food, and so as a result,
you don't take any joy from it.
Don't really take much joy from it at all. I know. Which means that, like, as a result, when it comes to food, it's just like, can't be bothered. I'd rather just keep doing what I'm doing. Well, and so actually, in terms of gaining that control for myself and making sure that I maintain healthy, it's much more about making sure that I have easy access, but also high nutritional value foods available to me, so that I minimize my own mental load of going to create that food for myself, and so the barrier isn't there, whilst at the same time being able to have something that is more nutritious for me than just another slice of bread and peanut butter.
I mean, peanut butter, as long as it's normal peanut butter without, some parts is terrible because it has the sugar and everything. But most peanut butter where it's just peanuts and a bit of salt, like that's completely fine. And I think that's actually a reasonably healthy source of calories.
That's kind of why I said another, because it is literally me just being like, breakfast, what shall I have? I'll just put some peanut butter on it, that's good for me, and I'll have that, and then it will come around again and be like, I guess I'm a little bit hungry, I'll just have some more peanut butter, that's all right, that'll do. And then the next thing I know, it's dinner time, and you're like, what have you had to eat today, lol? And I'm like, I've had bread
And peanut butter.
and peanut butter. That's a sandwich.
I mean, maybe you want, like they can be kind of, they're not the cheapest thing necessarily, but maybe if you might want to consider vitamin supplements.
I mean, obviously, I having sort of gotten more in control of myself specifically since my university days, I am now much more intent on making sure I'm eating a balanced diet and nutrition and all the rest of it and staying healthy. So don't worry, I'm on top of it now.
Okay. And a quick hello to Grey Maney. Thank you for following. And as always, to everyone, if you've not seen this show, we do very much welcome all respectful comments and questions. And that's the reason why I do this live, to interact with you. So please, and if you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, then feel free to write a comment. And I try to, again, reply to all respectful comments and questions. If it's a question that I think is going to have a long answer, I might, answer it on a future show, but I will let you know. But without further ado, let's crack on and get to the main topic. So why did you want to talk about this? About how to avoid being all consumed when work is your passion? Do you feel like you're at risk of being all consumed? Do you think like you have been all consumed in the past? Do you think you have managed to break out of that cycle?
Yes, to all of the above, to be honest.
Congratulations on the third yes.
Yeah, I think that's probably part of where being in a team of 3 is really helpful, is that one of us will realize that the other is stuck and struggling, and so we can sit and we can talk it out. And I think even if you aren't in a bigger team, having friends who might recognize that, or other people in the industry who might be a bit like, you've been in deep for a while now, you need to come up for air, as it were, is very important. But I also think it's something creatives as a whole really struggle with. I know creatives in a bunch of different fields, and all of us go through this at points of getting all consumed by it, absolutely stuck in, and just we don't come up for air, which is a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about what we mean by being all consumed, because if you are doing just board games, but sometimes you're working on your board games, sometimes you're doing social media, sometimes you're, posting things out, but then sometimes you're playing other people's board games, and sometimes you're reading about board games or listening to podcasts. Would that still be considered is that still too much? Is that being all consumed?
I think the definition in my mind of being all consumed by it would be when other aspects of your life suffer because of how in it you are. Like, I've been meaning to make a doctor's appointment for 3 weeks about something that's actually getting quite pressing now, but I just have to do this thing.
Yeah.
I just have to pass this point. At that point.
And there's always another point.
There's always another point.
Yeah.
That's a really good way to put it. When, maybe you're not able to go out to take care of your body, to go for walks and do any exercise at all. Because that is a thing that I hope we agree that as humans, we do need some level of exercise, hopefully daily. But even if you, sometimes you will just want to spend an entire day, be like, okay, I had a quick morning walk around the block. Now I'm just going to veg out on this couch the entire day, and that's okay. But if that's the regular thing, because you're spending all that day working on games and stuff, and then that's, not great for you. And for sure, there's a sense of wanting to make sure that, you see your friends and family and stuff enough. But it's all relative, isn't it? Because with friends and family, you could always say, well, I could be spending more time with them. I could be spending more time with them. And frankly, as soon as you've got more than 10 friends, you could be spending 24 hours a day, just caring for your friends. And that could be its own kind of sense of all consumption. But my point is that, possibly I currently don't spend enough time socializing and being with friends. But where is it that's okay? At this point, it's suffering. Yeah, how do you see the warning signs? Do you know what I mean? Is what I'm saying. Because it is all relative. What is a safe level?
So I think this is particularly interesting that the conversation we've just had in regards to food and all of that has basically been about how if you swing in one direction too far, you need to rebalance yourself in order to become more healthy. And this is exactly the same thing, but from a different aspect, right? effectively, if you become too much in a singular thing, and as a result you don't focus on the other parts of your life and they suffer for it, then you need to bring yourself back into a balance. It's all about balance, and finding that balance that works for an individual, I think, is really important to anyone in any role, creative or otherwise. But I feel like creatives fall into the trap of needing to over focus on their projects on the basis that in order for our creative projects to be acceptable to others, they generally need to have some worth to them. They have to have something that comes from them, and it's very difficult to reach that point. And so the eternal kind of almost treadmill of trying to get to a point where those creative endeavors are seen as worthy is something that it can feel very overwhelming. It can feel all-consuming, and finding the balance despite that pressure is something that's really quite difficult.
Yeah, and like, yes, I 100% agree that it's all about balance, but I kind of feel like you've dodged the question, because my question was like, what is the right level? And then you're saying, oh yeah, it's all about balance. And look, I'm not having a go. I'm just kind of pointing out that and honestly, I really appreciate everything that you've said. And it is worth stating, yes, it's not about maximizing any individual thing. Like if I was to go out to the gym, I could go to the gym 5 hours a day and then, spend another 2 hours a day, like doing other exercise, and then spend like another, I could, but then obviously there's a certain limit. And I agree, there is a balance, and anything taken to extreme is too much.
But I think in regards to your previous question, I don't think I dodged it necessarily. I think I was just more clarifying the previous point, I guess. I think the question is a valid one, though.
I think as far as what is the right amount is also a very personal question. And I can tell you, for me, what the right amount is, but I know that my right amount could be vastly different to your right amount.
Yeah, the better question is, like, how do you find your own right amount? Because maybe for me, the amount of time that I spend focusing on board games, given, social media and designing and reading rules and podcasts and playtesting, it's a ridiculous amount of time. And, for someone else, that might be like, whoa, that's way too much. But maybe for me, it's actually okay. Maybe the bit of me that's actually not in balance is like actually that I'm just being a bit inefficient. Like when I watch TV, I should be also drawing at the same time, like doing the envelopes, because those don't need to be of any good quality, if you know what I mean. Whereas I do like sending envelope arts out. I think I've got, like, these are the smallest ones, which have little self-portraits. They're ready to go. Nice. And it's got a wee waving bears. And I started doing ones with scared running off bears, because after thousands of waving bears, I've decided, I'm going to start doing scared bears until I get tired of doing that. So I just don't know why it happens. I'm just like, this is sudden switch. But
maybe maybe you need to ask yourself questions, and like the answers to those questions is what will help you reach that point. Like, am I happy with the amount of progress I am making on this project? Yes or no? If yes, okay.
But if no, the answer isn't always to spend more time on it. And that's the key thing that I noticed with... So let me tell a quick story about when I was working on In a Bind. And when I was working on In a Bind, now known as Yogi, I should say, so don't please go off looking for In a Bind, please go off looking for Yogi. So when I said, okay, this Kickstarter, it's done, it'll be ready for December. And I thought I was leaving myself loads of time, but, I was just struggling to get the art done. That's what it was. Honestly, it had become a mental bottleneck, and I was saying, okay, I'm not going to do anything else. But then, come January, I decided, you know what? I remember back when I was at university, I was like so focused on this thing. I was just incredibly sad. And I felt like if I wasn't doing this one thing, then I didn't deserve to do anything. And so because of that, I was sleeping about 18 hours a day because I felt like I could be okay with myself sleeping because it's clearly productive, even though that's rubbish. Like there is a limit to how much sleep you actually need. And then it was kind of my form of escapism and like I just couldn't handle the thing, but then I had no joy coming into my life because I was continually saying, I need to do this project for university. Do you know what I mean? And yes, it was obviously depression. But then when it came to doing the art for the game that would turn into Yogi, it was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to work on other games. I am going to allow myself the time to, inspired by Matthew Dunstan, do a new game idea every day. I'm going to start this blog and I'm going to write all these game ideas and I'm still going to go to playtest. And when I go to playtest, I'm going to make a new game idea and I'm going to have fun with it. But I am also going to try and get this other stuff done. And that kind of allowed me the joy in my life to keep going. And I think that's the key thing. Like, if you aren't happy with your progress, the answer isn't to just throw more time at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely see that.
Yeah. I think time management in terms of creative projects is possibly the most difficult one because there is no, in much in the sense I was saying about worth, there is no real way of knowing how much time and even an element of a project can be worth. You can't really tell whether or not, is this taking too long? Should this actually have taken me less time, and therefore is it, worth just abandoning now because it's like, this is clearly too much of a, getting bogged down in it. It's really hard to tell because everything is based on your own, not only thresholds, but your own values as well. And there have been some games which, when I've been working on them, have taken me multiple days to craft and adjust, and even through the act of creating them have made me realize that some bits don't work. And so as a result, I now have to make new bits instead of those bits which I had made. And it's like, were those bits therefore a waste of time? Or were those bits actually necessary to go through that time in order to realize that? And so working out what the time you're using is worth is really difficult in creative projects because the process is very much a part of the construction. And sometimes the construction is a part of the process. And everybody's process is different. So it's a whole almost ball of twine that nobody can find the beginning end of because everyone's got their own beginning. And trying to work out what the best route through is something that is a very personal experience. And I think in a way that actually that's what makes creative industries so interesting because everybody has their own way of doing things. Everyone has their own experiences. As you were saying earlier, there are those folks who, focus much more on the business side of things. Does that make their games less creative? I would say probably not. Ultimately, it's just
the folks that I've talked about, what they've then started doing is getting other designers to make the games because, and so not to badmouth Caesar or, Peter, but the point is that, it is a different skill. And I'm not saying there isn't creativity in the business parts. Of course there is. But I think that, look, we can glamorize and romanticize the notion of a brainwave. And the truth is, there have been times when, for Drawn Together, when I was walking through and the park and thinking, okay, I really want to make a colouring in game. And I also want to make a sheet like Matthew Dunstan and Rory Muldoon did for Voyages. That's a really good idea. Print at home, a single sheet, you don't cut it up. Could I do something like that where it's okay, a sheet of paper people print and then you colour it in? Okay, let's think about that. What kind of colouring in could I make? Okay, and then I worked out the whole thing basically over the course of one 40-minute walk. And, there are some times when there is a bit of a brainwave and sometimes, but then all of these things are coming from inspiration from the past. like seeing other people's things. I wasn't, even though Ellie Dix's colouring in games are totally different to mine, that was something that had inspired me. Seeing Matthew Dunstan and Roy Muldoon, my games, obviously very different. But, and by the same token, it sees the power, which like originally came about because like Tiz was talking about their background and I'd had this idea for asymmetric rules, and it was like, oh, maybe these two things could fit. Hey Tiz, let's talk. And then talking, and then it's like, and then there are brainwaves. Yes, there are. But as you say, Laurie, you've not said it explicitly, but I'm going to kind of jump forward a couple of dots. It's kind of contextual. You're setting the seeds. And if I'm cycling and listening to a podcast, is that the situation where I should be making games? If I'm showering, is that the situation where I should be making games? If I'm walking through the parks and looking at the ducks, is that the situation where good ideas come to me? I don't know. And at what point is it right we can recreate things? Like I know that for me, looking at the cards and writing down the cards on physical cards with a pen is always going to lead to better ideas than using the computer. I know that for me, having some good music is always going to be generally better than working in silence. And there's no 100% this is always true. Even when I say drawing, like sometimes I might want to actually build up a spreadsheet to be like, you know what? Now I'm going to type a bunch of stuff. And that's the key thing. That I wonder if it's day to day. Yes, there are priorities. Yes, there's, okay, this thing needs to be before Wednesday. I absolutely need to post a whole bunch of stuff. But day to day, it's like, okay, which of these things do I want to do? And if I really can't do any of them, can I do any of the second priority stuff? Well, if I can't, maybe, do you get what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but I think even though it is very personal, I still think it's excellent that people share it. I still think it's great that people talk about it, because although it's very personal, hearing people talk about it means that you might click with one or two things someone else says. Like, for example, even just now, I've had a game idea in my head for months, and I've not been able to make any progress outside of my head with it at all. And you were just saying about writing it on physical paper, and I haven't tried that. I normally try and make things through the PC because that's what I gravitate towards, because I do digital art a lot, but I've never made my own game. So maybe I should try and put it to paper. Maybe that would help me more.
Definitely. That actually made a huge difference for me with roleplay game creation, in the sense that for board games, actually, I find it much easier to write it digitally. And so I assumed that therefore for roleplay game creation, it would be much the same. You type it down in a Google Doc, no big deal. But actually, when I got myself a little pad, I sat down and I started writing it, even though there was permanence of, like, now I've written that thing and now it's right there. Just by writing it down on a pad, it made a difference. It made it easier.
I'm laughing because for me, it's the exact opposite.
Okay.
For board games, I love moving things around on paper. So I was looking around to see if I could. So, like, this is Heart versus Skull. It's one of the drawn together sheets. And the way I do that is I take a sheet of paper and then I draw the two things and then I kind of work out the lines. For sure, if it was on a graphics program, it might be like, okay, let's move this thing here, let's move that thing here. Maybe it would be like 10% better, but that doesn't really matter. The more important thing is that it was actually done.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? 100%. And then, like, I can actually get two of them done in, like, a bit of concerted, okay, I've got to do this thing. I'm waking up on Friday and I'm going to go to playtest. Let's do a couple of new sheets of drawn together. And I can do that. And it's a joy. And spend like half an hour drawing these things. Whereas, moving bits around, moving counters around, actually, even before I draw the cards, I might be thinking, okay, what if I have a bluffing game and I'll just imagine what's on the cards, but physically moving the cards with my hands actually helps me. But then when it's a role-playing game, of the two role-playing games that I've actually worked on, one was a co-design, one was a solo thing, obviously with a bit of help and support group. Like, obviously people love and it's amazing to have people. But I think that for me, because that is so text-based, I do benefit from just writing it out and typing it out and closing all the windows, having some maybe instrumental album going on, but then just one screen, nothing else visible, just typing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and this is why it's important to talk about this stuff, right? Because even by noticing the almost complete opposite processes that we have, just by talking about it, it's almost normalizing the idea that whatever your process may be, whatever way you find that works for you, ultimately, if it ends up in positive creativity, then it's good, then it's right, it works. There is no one correct way. If anything, the more people talk about their correct ways, the more other people will go, oh, hey, maybe I should try that. And then they find their own.
I love that. Speaking of which, I'm going to restart. I kind of started, but I'm going to properly restart. And I'm not going to say finish, because that's, you know what, I'm going to finish a first draft of a book by the end of January.
Oh,
end of the year seems like a bit much of a January, like it just feels a bit safer, because then I can enjoy the Christmas and like New Year, potentially like a few days around the New Year, finishing the first draft. But like it's going to be about how I make things, and like it's what are you doing and why, a guide to making games or indeed any other creative endeavors. But I'm looking forward to sharing that with people. And David Brain always says, with any book that's even alluding to self-help, the first line should always be, this is something that works for me. Maybe it will work for you, maybe it won't, but do what works for you. And that's the key thing. Like these questions, it's all about the questions. It's all about how do we point people towards that self-discovery? Are there questions that we can really ask ourselves to find a balance, to find what else we should be prioritizing in life? Or are even the questions inherently personal?
Yeah, I won't deny that a lot of what taught me about not only how I worked, but how to help myself work more efficiently and help myself in terms of like balancing how I did things, was learning about the fact that I had ADHD. And by understanding that I had that, and by learning about other people who had ADHD in creative industries and otherwise, and how they approach these things, I was better able to learn tools and strategies that I could use to help myself overcome my own drawbacks. And they were drawbacks that I didn't even necessarily know that I was facing for much of my life. And so when I came across this and realized that that was something that I was struggling with, it really filled in those gaps. And I think that much of self-discovery comes from the fact that often we're all doing our best, but we don't even know our own capabilities or what we're dealing with in ourselves, let alone how to accurately transmute that into so yeah, there's so much to it.
I love what you said about it being a voyage of self-discovery. Ree, do you have anything else to add about the questions that we might be asking ourselves on this voyage of self-discovery, of what levels of what hours, what tasks are right for us as individuals?
I think it is important that people do realize it is about self-discovery, because in a lot of industries it is easy to get consumed by the right and wrong way to do things, the right questions to ask yourself, how many hours of production and productivity you need to have under your belt before you can rest for the day, that sort of thing. So I think, you do kind of have to know yourself a little before you even start edging into that sort of territory.
And there's also, I was just, when you were saying about like, the right number of hours to work on something, and these ideas of these almost minimum boundary goals where you're like, oh, well, if you're a writer, you have to get this many 1,000 words done every day. If you're a board game designer, you need to get this many prototypes finished every month. It's people putting themselves across as like gurus in the industry, where they're like, oh, well, I have achieved success, and so therefore, in my opinion, if everyone is doing this thing, then they too shall be successful like me. And I have seen,
and that only applies if you've got exactly the same physiological and brain makeup.
Yeah.
I think this is, as a disabled person who has two disabled parents, something that I was given as a child, something that's always been drilled into me, is that as long as you are doing it and you're happy with what you're doing, it doesn't matter how you do it. It doesn't matter if you do it the right way. It doesn't matter if you do it the same way everyone else does. As long as you feel you're able to do it and you want to do it, go for it.
Yeah.
I love
I'm
that.
actually kind of the opposite, in the sense that I've been surrounded by self-help books that have all sort of said, if you do it this way, you will be successful, and it will.
But then eventually you read so many self-help books that are saying contrasting and conflicting things, and then you realize, hey, none of them are really right.
Yeah.
It's down to me.
It's all a matter of degrees. It's all a matter of finding the ways that help yourself. And there isn't certainty, but in that non-certainty, there's a freedom to be able to find your own pace and your own methods. And you need to find a pace and a method which you can find joy in. And I think,
I was just going to say, I think that's the thing, is that it's in the title of a self-help book. They can't self-help. You have to find what it is you can take from that book, from that person's experience, that helps you specifically. And I think rather than turning to gurus and people who know it all, we should more be turning towards community and going, what worked for you? Because I'm hoping something that worked for you may help me. Not, I want to take everything you say as absolute, correct.
And I was doing a podcast ages ago. Before I did a stream, I did do, I think, about 100 episodes of a weekly podcast that I chatted to Jamie Stegmaier a couple of times, and I kind of called him up on this because in their Building a Better Crowd, one of the things is they are a strong advocate of blogging, and they say, write a blog every, I can't remember what's the frequency, they say it might be like every week, and this will do it. And I say, can I just say that I don't feel entirely comfortable with that, because whereas maybe for you, conventions don't really work because you don't get energy from it. But I love conventions. I adore being there. And without conventions, it would be like, well, what's the point of me running a business? Honestly, if I wasn't to go to any conventions, I wouldn't be self-publishing. And I don't think many people would be surprised to hear that.
Yeah.
And Jim was like, yeah, actually, you know what, it was so many years ago, and I kind of apologize, and I do look at it and I think, who was I to say these things? But then, I understand once the book's out there, you don't want to change everything that you've written, and it's like, okay, I'll just leave that there. And but I do love, I read this one book by CD Baby. I don't know if you know the guy who made, CD Baby as a business. So it was basically in the early days of the internet, I want to say 90s, and there was the CD Baby where they would print CDs for indie artists, and it wouldn't cost you any money. You'd have a one-time upfront fee, and then they would take a percentage of each sale and a flat fee for each sale, and that was it. So you could just charge their flat fee and get no money. You could charge £5 more and get £5 profit. You could charge £20 more and get £20 profit, whatever you wanted. So it was really simple. And then the book goes through what their lessons are, but it's always, these are lessons that worked for me. And I'm reading through and thinking, yeah, some of those do actually work for me. And some of those I might try and apply to me, but there's never a sense of do this. And I think that's the critical thing. And for sure, I don't want to tar Jamie Stegmaier with the actions of past Jamie Stegmaier, because, you know, people do have room to grow and shift their attitudes. And I think that's the key thing. That's the self-help book comes from a place of guidance, and this is what works for me. Hopefully you get something from it. This is my philosophy. Maybe you get something from it rather than this is the be-all and end-all and this is a bad game, and that annoys me.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Well, I think that obviously we've talked a lot about how a lot of stuff works for individuals and such. I mean, what do you feel, Bez, that your biggest shift in how you worked was as you developed as a game designer and as a general content producer and as a whole? What do you feel was the biggest change for you in terms of like, actually this works better for me?
Honestly, the biggest shift, which is kind of sad because they're going to be leaving soon, someone helping me 2 days a week. And like, once I had someone who was helping me like 1 day a week, just regularly, that was such a massive thing. And Chris helping me 2 days a week meant, like, without them, I wouldn't have been able to do all the games that I did over the last year, because it's just just having someone else in the room helps you work faster. Having someone and saying, okay, that person's here to scan all this stuff, I need to bloody get it done. And then sometimes I do work really late to finish it, which might not be the healthiest thing, but you know, I could have worked, you know, more normal hours, but maybe I was less productive during the day. But for whatever reason, it's like, hey, I'm going to do this last minute burst, and that's what works for me. And having that incentive and the deadlines that have been set by other people kind of needing this stuff. And so, yes, frankly, working with, I'm not going to say even like one other person, like half another person, like as part of the team, someone part-time who's there to basically that I am able to rely on and they are able to rely on me. How about you? What's the biggest shift you've made in the past year? What do you say?
I think the biggest shift for us has probably been that we've started making allowances in terms of when a sort of a new project arises or something like that, or I have a new game idea that I get really into, I actually allow myself the space to be able to put things aside also and focus exclusively on that thing and get it down and get it like set. And then that way my brain can put it down and I can actually get on with my other things that I need to get done. And allowing myself that 24 hours where I'm like, okay, I have this thing, I'm really excited about it, I've got this burst inside me, rather than having my attention being like, this is the thing I want to do, and like, this is, I'm trying to get it in the camera, this is the thing I want to do, and this is the thing that I need to do. Instead of my attention going whoop, 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 instead I'm like, right, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to get it to a point for 24 hours, and then I'm going to put it down, get back on.
And like, the 24 hours, let's go back to that's what works for you. Yeah. And it does remind me of, you know, what I was saying about back at uni, where I was just doing the one thing, getting depressed. And then I started doing that with the game that is now known as Yogi. I say, oh, I can't quite do this. But then once I started doing other things, and I was like, okay, I'm getting to do other games. And that's kind of fun. And now I really want to get this one thing finished. Now I'm a bit more excited about it. It's sparking joy in me now. Yeah. And yeah, even though it was still slow going, like each picture for the original thing was about maybe, I would say the final rendering was 2 hours on average. And then, but before that, obviously there were concept arts, if you know what I mean, leading up to that point. So it like when you're doing like 54 drawings, like it is like quite, whoa, I've got this big task ahead of me, but just like, okay, I'm getting to do a bit of other games. Now I'm spending like a day, okay, I can do like 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 things, and I'm sitting down I managed to get it done. Yeah, or even like just one. I got one more done, and then you keep going and get to your thing. I would like to tackle the questions that have lined up in the comments, as you might see, that I had in the original show description. How do we make sure to take a break, and how do we turn off? For me, it's forcing myself by doing things where it's scheduled with other people. Specifically, when I started dance classes, and I'm not going to lie, Wednesday I didn't go out to them because I was just feeling really nervous and anxious, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff mixed in there, and I was feeling a bit down. But then Thursday I got out, and even though it's the level 1 yet again, and I've started level 1 multiple times, but while I'm there, it's like, yeah, I'm just focusing on this. I'm focusing on the footwork. I'm focusing on doing my hands in the correct way. Even though I know the footwork 100%, someone else over there is more naturally doing their hands in a really nice way. Can I copy that? And so it's kind of blocking off bits of time where I have to be somewhere, and then that forces me to essentially take a break, if you know what I mean. What about you?
We have sort of scheduled time off, to be honest. Like every Sunday, we're not allowed to look at work. We're not. Sunday is not a day for looking at work unless it's a Kickstarter. That's the only exception.
Yeah.
Kickstarter
breaks all the rules.
There's
nothing you can do about it.
But I think the other
Is that just from the day the Kickstarter goes live until the day it finishes, you mean?
Yeah. While the project is live, because you've got to be there to answer questions, you've got to help people out, that sort of thing. But I think
because there's always, again, a temptation to let that seep out and be like, oh, I've got a Kickstarter launching on Tuesday. I should spend this Sunday trying to get another couple of followers.
Yeah. But I think another way that we make sure we turn off and take a break is saying yes. If someone contacts you and says, hey, we haven't met up in a while, would you like to go for a coffee? I don't really want to go out this week. I don't really want to go for a coffee. Yeah, I'll meet up with you.
Yeah, we're exhausted because we've been doing fucking loads of work. Well, you know what? I'm just going to say yes, because actually I need to do something other than this. And if I don't go, what am I going to do? It's just going to be more work. So I'm going to stay exhausted. So I'm not going to.
Yeah.
And I think for me, what I call that in a way is something called a state break. And I find those
state break. As in you're changing the state of what you're doing.
Yeah. So I find I kind of use this within the day. If I'm finding myself getting bogged down in something, if maybe I'm doing a fulfillment spreadsheet, which anyone who has done one knows that they will terrible. Eat your brain. But basically, if you're getting really bogged down in something, if it's really sort of crunchy and you're getting overwhelmed by it to some degree, then I do what I call a state break, and you get up, you go and do something completely different, something that uses a completely different part of your brain. It doesn't really matter what it is, but it has to use a different part of your brain. For some people, it's walking away and playing an instrument because it's totally separate. For some people, it is going and reading a book because it's using your imagination to focus on something. Whatever it may be.
Maybe it's hula hooping.
Sorry?
I should be doing more hula hooping.
Right,
yeah,
exactly. Whatever it is, it has to use a different part of your brain. And if it does that, it allows that part of the brain that's getting really bogged down to kind of take a rest. Back to it maybe an hour later, that allows you to come back and you've got a bit more of a fresh head. And, that state break thing for me allows me to either turn off or gain a bit more clarity.
I love that. And talking about, hula hooping and music and reading, what are some of the other things you enjoy in life? What state breaks do you enjoy? And how do you make sure to make time for them?
I really enjoy playing with the dog and going for walks, which is easy to make time for because he won't let me not.
Yeah.
He is an excellent dog in that he doesn't bark at you, but he will just rest his head very heavily on your leg, and if you ignore him, he'll lift it up and push it harder, and he'll just keep pushing his head into you until you give in. So making time for him is easy.
Oh.
He has a black hole stare, which is the sense that if he stares at you, he will suck your attention towards him no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly like that. Eventually, you have to look at him, and then he's like, "Aha, I got you."
That is pretty
My
much
time
what
now.
he does. Yeah.
That's exactly it. So,
Talking about exercise, I mean, it sounds like your dog is your main source of exercise.
Absolutely.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Do you take turns to go out, or is it just you, or?
No. We often, if it's a long walk, we'll go together.
Lovely.
If it's a short walk, then like obviously if it's a utility walk in the sense that he needs a wee or he needs a number two, whatever, then it will normally just be one of us. We'll quickly go out, we'll toilet him. He's an incredibly smart dog, so we've actually managed to teach him to go to the toilet on command, which is great because we can literally go outside and be like, "Okay, Tobin, do a poo." And he'll be like, "Okay." So utility walks are very quick, but for long walks, for pleasure walks, for getting him to have enjoyment,
Getting his energy out and getting us moving. We both
Absolutely.
go together.
Yeah.
And sometimes we schedule like day outs. It's a bit like having a child, to be honest. Should we go to the park today? Should we take the dog to the park?
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
There is very few things he loves more than the ball. He's a rescue dog, which means that when we first got him, he didn't even really know how to play. So when we got him and we kind of showed him, tug as a toy and throwing a ball and him grabbing it and bringing it back, it was like almost I don't understand what's happening. And then as soon as he got like enjoyment from it, it became the best thing in the world, the most incredible activity ever. And so we schedule, every other day or so if we can, to go and give him a long ball throwing proper walk, and that gets that.
And what I'm hearing is that you're making the exercise both enjoyable because you've got the conversation and there's this companion with you who's just got so much enjoyment from you, but also there's a need to do it. So you've set up a need. And myself, like I've sort of like on Friday, yeah, sure, I'll cycle, a few miles to Waterloo and then I'll cycle back because I'm playtesting. But normally I'm not doing that. And so now Wednesdays and Thursdays, I go to Latin dancing and I've paid for it. And so I better go because, last week it was the first class. I've done the first class like 2 times before. I'll be able to catch up. It's fine. And hopefully I'll progress to the second level at the end of this month because it's like a month-long course. Anyway, that's beyond the point. I've set up myself with a need to do it because it's like paid for, and if I don't go, then I'll fall behind the class. But also there is an enjoyment aspect because, of course, I love dancing, and hopefully there's something that you can find that you like or something that gives you a bit of pleasure rather than focusing on the steps. Maybe it's a particular tree that you really like to touch, or there's a pond where you really like to be because there's some waterfowl near there. I don't know.
But I think that's the ultimate answer of how can we ensure we get enough exercise and maintain a healthy-ish body is rather than making it a chore, make it enjoyable.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be something physical that you want to do that brings you enjoyment and gets the exercise in. Whereas if you make it a chore, you're never going to want to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, and finally, how can we make sure we spend enough time with friends and family? How and what is enough time for you?
This is going to be a tough one for me because I'm absolutely rubbish at it.
You've not got the best social battery.
I don't, especially post-COVID, I've had just an incredibly low social battery as a whole. And it's a lot of effort for me to go and meet with people. And it's not because I don't enjoy the time once I'm there, but I've developed sort of a level of social anxiety, not about the people, but about my own levels of energy and arriving just in time to be like, oh God, I'm exhausted, I'll be at home. And that also to some degree also extends to even friends online, in the sense that if I get so wrapped up in my work, we've been talking about, getting wrapped up in your projects and your work, that I don't realize how much time has passed since I've last spoken to people. And I've gotten better now at occasionally just dropping a message to them and being like, hey, we haven't spoken in a little while. Just to remind you, I really love you. You're the great, you're a close friend of mine, and I hope you're doing well. And like, I'm busy as hell, but I would love to chat again soon. Let me know when you get some free time. I'm getting better at doing that, and it's definitely a work in progress. But like, I am not the person to ask for advice for it on.
Well, at the same time, I'm aware that you've realised that you have a lower social battery. For me, it's the travelling that's the big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, yesterday I was feeling like on Saturday I cycled about 12 miles, which is, it's not the most, but it's a fair bit for me. So like I cycled a good distance on Friday. I'm not sure how much it is, probably a similar amount, a bit less, maybe let's say 8 or 10. And then 12 miles on Saturday because I looked at the distance because I was curious. And then on Sunday I was meant to go to a daytime board gaming thing. I managed to do my taxes, which I'm really happy about. So that was out of the way. But once I'd done it, it was like, wow, I'm just really physically exhausted. I don't want to cycle like 40 minutes somewhere and then be there and to know that I'm going to have to cycle 40 minutes back.
Yeah.
That's just too much for me. And if I'd lived, 5 minutes away, absolutely. But honestly, that was kind of the reason that I was just kind of too exhausted to do the distance. But like in terms of people being around, I am one of these people that I don't know how many of us there are. Like, I would happily have someone around, like if they were comfortable. It depending on the person, like 24 hours. Like, obviously with some of parts of the day when you're in the loo, it's a little bit weird. But I don't mind people being around, and I would rather be around people. And my way of recharging, I actually, on Saturday, for example, I after playtest, I was like, I want to be out more. Oh, but everyone else is going home. Anyone want to go to the park? No? Okay. Well, I guess I'll just sit out on this bench because then there's people walking around. I'll do the social media on my phone, and then someone comes by, compliments me on my brightly coloured outfit because, of course, it was a bit brighter than this. It was more of a proper red. This is more of a kind of dull red for me. But and then I love that. So and then I went over to start chatting with them, and then we ended up. I suggested like if they buy me a non-alcoholic beverage, then I would sit and chat with them for a while, which they were happy to do. They basically needed company, and I was excited to have company. So we'd hung out for another. Like I love that.
Yeah.
And I could, but like then obviously if I did that all day, I'd never get any work done.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's not. But then sorry, this is a really long-winded way of saying that you, Laurie, it's not that you don't get enough social connections, maybe. It's just that for you, maybe the level of what is the right amount of time to spend with people is a bit lower than what it would be for me.
For sure.
I think it's lower than mine as well.
Yeah.
And for a while, there was a difficulty of wanting to go and spend time with people together, mainly, and neither of us quite getting what we needed from the social interaction. So now we've sort of managed to change that where, we can both get what we need from our social interaction, which is why it worked out quite well at UKGE that I went with Rob and Laurie stayed home with the dog, because I loved it. I'd never been to a convention like that before, and it was just so recharging for me to be there. But I know you would have really struggled.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one with conventions, because you were saying, Bez, about how if it wasn't for conventions, you wouldn't be able to do all this. Like, they are almost your primary core energy point, where you're like, well, conventions are the center jewel of this entire thing. And for me, conventions, I enjoy conventions when I am actively playing games, whether it be my games or other people's games or whatever. But the moment there is downtime, the general hubbub and the general mass activity becomes too much for me. I am autistic. I have auditory processing difficulties, and so as a result, I really struggle with it. Which means that generally, by the time it gets to day 3, I'm so exhausted. Like, I'm just completely wiped, and I probably I'm not really the best person for conventions. Doesn't mean I don't have a good time, roughly, but it's not. I'm not the best person for them. Ree, on the other hand, is amazing at them. Comes back feeling energized and generally has a great time, even despite her physical difficulties of being, having a disabled body. Despite that, being in like cramped conditions behind the table, with not a lot of walking around time. But
yeah,
it's like we both have these separate difficulties. But Ree gets more energy from the convention, and I'm wiped by the end of it and need like a week to recover.
Like, there's only 2 times I would say when I kind of feel bad at a convention, and yeah, I think like assuming that I'm doing stuff myself, then one time when I feel bad will be if I'm on my own and there's no one at my table, and I'm like, oh, why is there no one at my table? And then like I'm a bit better about it now, but sometimes those gremlins will come in and be like, oh, what am I doing wrong? Why do they have someone at the table and why do I not? Why am I so terrible? Am I a terrible human? Am I just a terrible game designer? Am I just terrible general? And all these, and of course,
we're laughing for the record because I think we all empathize. we all know what it's like to have those gremlins come in and be like, this thing that's unavoidable, it's clearly personal.
And that's the thing. Like, I mean, when you go to conventions where there's less than 1,000 people, you are going to have those moments. Mm-hmm. I am lucky in that I can go to Dragon Meet, which is a medium-sized convention. It's not super big, but there's like 1,000, 2,000 people. And that's only one day for the record, so you might enjoy it, Laurie. Mm-hmm. But I'm kept busy from... Yeah, maybe I've got like 20 minutes of quiet during the entire day, and that's not too bad. So that's like a reasonably nice pace. And then on the other side, the other time that I might get unhappy is if I feel like I wasn't able to give people time. Like people who know me, like frankly, and this might sound terrible, like I can't remember if you came over. I kind of assumed that you came over, but I didn't have time to actually chat to you, for which I kind of apologize, but you knew that was going to happen. So I don't really apologize, and that sounds terrible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I popped by and I got, to be honest, over the whole weekend, I think I got maybe 5 minutes off stall. And I popped by and I said hello to a bunch of people, and I came over to you and you were doing a bunch of stuff, and I was like, that's awesome to see. I knew you would be. Nice.
Yeah.
It was nice to see you. Maybe not
Thank you.
But yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And
aircon as well, to be honest. Like, it was a smaller convention, but nonetheless, you were still crazy busy and like fantastic. That's really good.
And it is like for people like you, like I see you all the time, and hello River Dusty, it's lovely to see you. And like I've never met you in person, but if you were to come over, like I hope you'd understand that I'd hopefully be able to say hello. I'd make sure to do a quick elbow dance, but if I'm being recorded, then obviously I can't interrupt that. Which I did have, like, I think, I lined up one person every hour throughout the show, and I had like 75% of my hours were taken. So I had like a new media appointment, basically 75% of the hours, which was really fun. But I was helped by my amazing team, like these like 10, 12 people who were all helping demonstrate things. So hopefully everyone's got a bit of time. But then if there's ever a moment where one person comes by and then they don't get interacted with, like someone doesn't give them a sticker, or, they go by without any interaction from us, then like I feel like we've kind of let them down slightly. So yeah, that's it. But River, yes, 100%. This is exactly what we were talking about. That it's all about finding that balance. Yes, River said, Dusty says, enough time means not too much as well as not too little. Wife and I are driving each other crazy. And it sounds like if that's the situation, maybe you want to not do everything together. I know Chris and McCall, like Chris who helps me, and McCall's one of my best friends. They are a couple. They're a very loving couple. But the truth is that McCall is a bit more extroverted and does so much more things, like goes out in the evenings and goes out on the weekends. But they've still got like time, at the end of the night together, or like just for a few hours each day, because sometimes you don't need to spend the majority of every day. It's like entirely up to you, because it's unlikely that what you want to do and what they want to do will exactly always be. It's like very unlikely to be like that. It's more likely to be like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Working at home has its ups and downs. Yeah, I can get that.
I've always said that if I didn't have my day job, I probably would go nuts, because I do need to get out of the house more than you do.
Yeah.
So my day job helps me with that, because it gives me a set number of hours a week where I'm not at home.
Yeah.
We've already been chatting a wee bit more than I like to do these days, but it has been a wonderful chat and I have enjoyed every minute with you. Thank you so much. And now it's the time for you to ask me a question, and also ask a question that can be answered maybe by anyone watching. Question of the day, question of the day. Here's a little question before we go on our way. Question of the day.
I do actually have a question lined up. If you had a magical box, would you rather a magical box that could give you the exact game you wanted to play at that moment in time,
Ooh.
or a magical box that could bring to life an idea that you've had, like immediately?
I mean, isn't there a lot of crossover? Might the game I want to play not also be the idea?
Could be.
Maybe the stipulation is the box can only bring out like already published games. They have to
So basically, is it the choice between already published games or games from the imagination?
Yeah, I suppose it is.
Okay, I like this.
Would you rather?
So this is an interesting question, because it goes into the question of, would you rather jump to the destination? Almost, is game design itself a game? Is it an enjoyable, activity? And I kind of think it is, because in a sense, if the magical box could skip all the design and development, I could definitely see that making me millions, because I mean, imagine how efficient I could be with that magical box.
This is the thing, is that once you've played it, the game disappears. So that prevents it from basically being a money-making opportunity. It is a case of the game appears, so I
can't pitch it to a publisher or anything.
No. I mean, you've got it there. If it allows you to play it, but then it is then. So you would have to recreate it afterwards, but it's like a temporary. In both boxes, it has to disappear afterwards, because otherwise it becomes a thing of just effectively a item creation box. Like, it has to be something that is a temporary.
But could you bring the magic box to a publisher meeting and take things out of the magic box?
Little workarounds, the creativity of humans.
We're going to have to put more rules into our magic box.
Absolutely. Back to the monkey's paw.
But I thought of it because today I woke up this morning and I looked at the board game groups on Facebook, and someone said that their child is currently obsessed with sharks and wants to play a game about sharks, but not the kind of game where it makes the shark a bad guy. And I was like, if only there was a magic box where you could be like, I want a game about sharks, but where sharks are the good guy, and then it just brings you that game.
Okay. So basically, one is published games that you know. The other is you just kind of give it ideas, and you could just okay, this is a game in my mind, and it makes it. Okay.
Yeah.
So River Dusty says a magic box then can buy you a game. Sounds like a bank account.
Doesn't sound like my bank account.
No, mine.
And yes, game for me, because as a software developer, I enjoy the process of creating my ideas.
Yeah.
And also Spore, although this is a video game rather than a board game. And I think you're talking about Spore from the same person who made SimCity.
Sid Meier, isn't it?
Pardon?
Is it Sid Meier who made the Civilization games? Or was
No,
it
I don't think it's them. I think it's the Will something who made the SimCity games.
Oh yeah, Maxis, right?
But like it's the but I don't care about the publisher. We care about the designers here, because I mean, who cares what big corporation happens to buy rights?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
the idea is that you can make a shark good or evil. But yes, this is a really hard one. If I had to choose right now, I would say the mystery box with the mystery games, because I like the idea, even if there's like some stipulation that I can never use it for pitching, even if there's like a stipulation that I think that sometimes I could choose to not use the box. Like I could choose to do the drawings and stuff myself if I really wanted. And I think it would be really interesting to see, this drawn together game. I'm really enjoying this feeling of drawing things together. But this other game, it's getting a bit hard. You know what? I think I will just jump. And then once you've jumped a gun on so many things, then you're going to get tired of that, right? So eventually you get more into the just realms of enjoying game design more. So even though I would love to have a box that just gives me any game I want so I can play all the games, I would love the mystery box even more.
Excellent.
Cool.
What about you?
I would also go for the mystery box, I think, to be honest.
I mean, I think anyone who is a creator of games as a whole would probably go for the mystery box, if only because obviously you can kind of pick the other games anyway if you want to. But to be honest, I think that what the question is ultimately asking is what do you find more like? What do you find you would like automated for you? Is it the process of quickly getting out an idea, or is it the process of making a decision in a vast library of potential? And so I think both are valid desires. I think for most creatives, they're going to go for this idea I got in my head, I can just open a box and like, oh, there it is. It's going to disappear in a second, but at least I have it in front of me. But the idea of being able to have something decide for you about like an entertainment thing is something I think a lot of us can empathize with, given
I didn't even think of that as a side benefit. I thought you had to say specifically the game, but that wouldn't change my answer. River Dusty says, if the box produces a card game to avoid the publisher problem, when you play a card, it is consumed and vanished. That doesn't quite work, because some games you need a discard pile. The discard pile might be part of the game, but also, unless anyone who is a potential publisher, I can't, as soon as it's within like a 10-meter radius, it vanishes, which it could happen. I could just take it out when a publisher is just there. And although then I might get into the problem of sometimes the games are terrible, and then they feel like I'm wasting their time. Also, I'd have to kind of...
Yeah, that's it, yeah. To River Dusty, I would say cut out the magic middleman. Just design all your card games on wafers.
Yeah.
And then just eat them. You play a card.
A magic box that produces a game and makes all publishers worldwide vanish. No, definitely not that. That sounds like a terrible thing.
That would be awful. Then the whole industry would collapse and there'd be no games at all.
I'm horrified at you for even suggesting such a thing. How could you do that?
Those
My
big publishers
gosh.
have to make money, bro. We need them to stay there.
Well, for now, over to you. What are you up to? You can share a button if you want to. Traditionally, Mondays are my days off, but I have been thinking that as time goes on, I might kind of try and focus on Wednesdays as a day off, because it works better for me. Because there's, yeah, things that I would like to do, like one Monday every few weeks, but then that business is closed and like on Sundays and Mondays. So it's like, yeah, that's a bit rubbish. I might as well change my day off to a different day.
Yeah.
So, but even so, I'm going to continue my tradition, at least for today. I'm going to take it relatively easy. I'm going to post some stuff if I can, but also make sure I get outside and do my exercise. Honestly, I don't know right now. I think that the big projects in my life are this, which I'm trying to get done for Tabletop Scotland at the end of August. So I have to make the card by around the start of August. They have to be done. There's a few best day things to be done for the 1st of August. There's going to be one free-to-play print-and-play game, which you just print a sheet. There's no cutting or anything. As long as you've got about 14 counters of 2 different colors, so like 14 in one, 14 in another, and 2 d6. I'm really excited about it. It's a roll and move game. People liked it, and then I made it better, and then it's even better. So yeah, I'm really excited by it, and hopefully you will like it. It's it's hard for me to publish, but if one day a publisher really wants to do something, I would take. It might just be a free print and play for a limited time, but I'll see how it goes. Also, I've got to actually, if I've got the energy, I might do a stock count, because that's super important, and get my shop upgraded, because that would allow me to make more money, which is also kind of important. You see, that's the kind of thing that I should actually be prioritizing. And also categorical. That is kind of some of my big tasks for the next few days. And I will see basically how I feel in about an hour. Because right now, I'm not going to lie, I'm high from like just the joy of being with you. Do you know what I mean? But then when you're gone, it's like, oh, now I'm a bit sad. But like, what are you up to? Whether it's something fun and frivolous or super serious, something you want to do, something you need to do, feel free to share. I promise that I care.
Okay. Well, this over the last kind of week, it is quite a personal one, but basically, I've been starting my medication for my ADHD, which allows me to kind of, or I hope, marshal my general jump brain, and actually be able to focus a little better and actually be able to get things done a little better. And I have been really excited to go on them, and have been really excited to sort of actually be able to have a little bit more productivity than I've necessarily been able to. And I am happy to say that there's already been improvements, even on the first week lower dose. There's already been minor improvements. But I've had to track my own reactions to the medication throughout the week. So I've been sort of making notes of how I've reacted, emotional sort of sudden spikes, or sudden fatigue, or anything like that is sort of unexpected. I've had to make notes of them so that so that the psychiatrist can help get the dose right. But it's really exciting to be on that track, and it's really exciting that there is the potential in the future that I will be more in control of my own mental processes as a whole. So that's really good.
Sounds fantastic. So I hope that it brings you more focus. And River Dusty, sounds like they have ADHD as well, and is saying, I get dry mouth from mine. Otherwise, everything is fine. And I hope that you get similarly fantastic results. Fingers crossed for you.
Thank you. Yeah. Otherwise, we are looking very hard at the moment at
flat hunting.
Flat hunting, yeah. Which is like, basically we're looking to move to Scotland. So it's interesting that you mentioned Tabletop Scotland, because that's probably going to be a regular haunt of ours next year onwards. And
where are you moving to?
Just around Glasgow. We're not entirely sure yet.
Oh, I might. Well, depends where exactly you are. But when I'm visiting parents, potentially for this Christmas, I will give you a wee message.
That would be great. It'd be really, really great to meet up, for sure. Yeah.
I don't think we've ever actually hung out.
we had another chance. The only times we've seen each other is at conventions.
Yeah,
and
that's not a good time to hang out.
It's
Yeah.
not.
I mean, if you are actually working to conventions, then it's a terrible time to hang out.
yeah.
But and like it's a weird one because I'm having my leaving do. I don't know if you saw the thing where I announced the dates of my leaving do.
Oh, I didn't see that there's a date. When is it?
I can't remember it, so I'll have to check my Facebook page. But I'll get that in moments. But it's going to be part of KCON, and basically I was looking at, okay, what's the convention? I want to have a big thing. There's going to be at least 30 people who will come. And then 22 people filled out a Google form to say, yeah, this is when I can come. This is what I want as part of your leaving do. And then if I'd made it a public thing, I'm sure that a bunch of people would have been inspired because maybe they like my games or whatever, or they are friends, but they can't be bothered filling out a Google form, or they didn't see it or whatever, like yourselves. And it's in October. So I talked to Kel, who was already saying that it would be sad to kind of have to choose between KCON and my thing, because I was thinking about a similar part of the dates, but then we thought, why not combine them? And that would be even better. And so we decided to combine them, and so there will be like 300 people at my leaving do, and everyone will get a goodie bag. There will probably be a brand new game for it, of course there will. And there'll be like a mega game that can go to hundreds of people if we get but people won't be forced to play particular things. There will be like an elbow dance where everyone elbow dances with literally everyone, to just kind of introduce your names. That's all there's time for, just introducing your names. Then there'll be like speed friending and like all sorts of things, but there'll be lots of stuff inspired from KCON, but there'll also be lots of stuff from me, and I'll be putting lots of energy into it. So I do worry that I need to make sure that I've got time to also play all the things, but I also want to run all the things. And of course there'll be like 2 p.m. events, but there'll be the most epic 2 p.m. events ever, possibly.
Awesome.
Until like 10 years down the line where I get an even more epic idea. We'll see.
I don't think we had plans to go to KCON, but we may need to revise that
We'll
now.
have a look at that.
Yeah. So
my leaving to, just to make it clear, is 2023. But if you want to go this year, it is a lovely thing. And if you are there, then let me. This is the post, and 19th to 22nd October 2023 is KCON, but KCON this year is 21st to 23rd of October.
Gotcha.
There we go. That's this year. Lovely thing. These are the kind of small conventions where it actually makes sense for exhibitors to just do things for one day. And then next year, the scribbling out is not meant to a sign of disrespect. It doesn't mean KCON isn't happening. It just means that I'm being allowed to host my leaving do there. So 2023.
Awesome.
excellent.
Alex, it's lovely. Yes, we are wrapping up. It is a long show relatively today. They are still going. Hi, River Dusty says, I keep wanting to apologize for yawnings, but then remember you can't see me. Yes, absolutely, 100%. You are forgiven. I'm only speaking for myself, but I'm assuming Ree and Laurie forgive you too.
I mean, I have been yawning on screen all morning, so you're forgiven.
I don't forgive you.
Oh, harsh. Wow.
You've done this.
Laurie.
Every yawn is like a stab in my heart.
Feeling dramatic today.
Yeah.
Recap and wrap up before we finish up. So to recap, it's natural that you're going to be all consumed. It's natural that you'll be sucked into this thing. And sometimes it's natural that you feel like you ought to do the thing, or you have to spend this many hours even when you really can't. And it's about working out what works best for you. It's about finding that balance. Self-help. It's about you helping yourself, not the book telling you what to do. You have to do the active work of working out what parts of this is good for you. We had a brief chat about drinking, which is a brilliant thing. We chatted about ADHD medicine, and we chatted about, if I scroll back, yes, to make sure to take a break, line up things for yourself, say yes to other people, enjoy whatever you can, and you have to be okay with not doing everything in one day. You have to be okay with sometimes doing things a bit more slowly than other people. Whatever works for you. There's not a minimum amount of hours that you need to do in a day or a week, or frankly, even a month. That's okay. Sometimes you need to take time off and allow yourself that. I mean, it is difficult when it's your livelihood, but you do, at minimum, need to get yourself out and generally make time for this. Make it pleasurable. Do things that you find fun. Say yes to people. And maybe the amount of time that Ree wants to spend with people is more than the amount of time that Laurie wants to spend with people. Maybe the amount of time that I want to spend with people is more than the two of them combined. I don't know. But yeah, it's all about the balance for you. And hello, Joanne, it is lovely to see you, and I hope you've had a lovely morning and you're having a lovely morning still over there. So if you want to check me out, I am Stuff by Bez in all of the places, Twitter, Instagram. Tomorrow I'm going to be... Oh, sorry, I better check. This is slightly embarrassing. Tomorrow I am going to be chatting about Seize the Power, a game that I'm working on with Tiz Creel, and also Rose Atkinson and some inside the box people. We've worked out a sort of cooperative mode, which might be good or might not. We've not actually played it, so hopefully we'll find out tomorrow. Wednesday I'll have Val and Paul on to talk about action retrieval. It's a thing that you can use in games, a form of agency. On Thursday I'll be meeting Phil Vizcarro, who's... I thought they were French. Vizcarro? I don't know how to pronounce it, so I do apologize. But they are the owner of Cosmoduck, who's a very indie board game publisher, but then when indies in one country who's they're less indie than me. They're actually signing up other people. And so feel free to check out all that stuff. And if you would like to check out the amazing Ree and Laurie, well, then the question becomes, where do you like to be found?
We are most active in our Discord server and our Twitter, but you can also find us on Facebook and Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And
SDR games.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Of course, you've got your Earth Rising, you can still get that on a late pledge if you want, and then you will still get it within a month of it coming out.
Yeah.
Of all the original backers getting their stuff. I mean, obviously, because of the vagaries of post, it might be a bit later, it'll be generally then.
Mm-hmm.
And is there anything else that you need to say?
Thank you for having us on. It has been a pleasure chatting to you again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a little while now since our last one, but it was a pleasure to be back again, because honestly, It's a wild ride today. What a great time. It's all
been really nice. I mean, one of our chats that was meant to happen had to be cancelled because of me. One of them because of you, but it's all good, and it's just such a delight to have you. And I'm looking forward to having you back for episode 700, which is obviously in 11 days on the Friday. And so that's going on a bit longer. So hopefully we'll be better for our American guests.
Yeah.
And really excited with some of the guests that you can see on stuffbybez.com/streams. For now, I want to say, thank you everyone who's been watching. Thank you everyone, even if you just came in at the end, to say a quick hello before we finish up. It is lovely to see you. And you know what? I am just going to finish up today. Oh, Alex, thank you. That's all I'm going to finish up is by saying bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye-bye. Bye-bye to Rhiann's Laurie. Bye-bye, Alex. Bye-bye, Joanne. Bye-bye, River Dusty. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.